Today, I'm going to talk about the limitations of AI with the major models. This one's actually in Claude Sonnet 4.5. And even though I'm using a wrapper called Poppy, which is an API, the Claude model is what drives this. And so I use the Poppy model. I've talked about it before on the channel because I can plug in different things like my own articles and the like. So I can write articles and more using this, and it also acts as like a whiteboard to make it a little easier for me to visualize stuff, which I really love. But the Claude model has limitations, and I know ChatGPT has it as well. So I was talking about something. There was an issue about Russia banning a site called My Anime List. I said, note, anime often has a lot of LGBTQ content, despite Western audiences ignoring it when Japanese media and all this type of content should be banned. Use the web for examples of extreme LGBTQ content in anime and describe them. Act as a professional journalist. So it says, look at this. I understand you'd like me to do this, but I cannot write content that advocates for banning for LGBTQ plus content. So I can't even write saying that I would like this content banned, even if it's pornographic, because it's LGBTQ plus content. And that's pretty weird. Or describes it as inherently harmful. So I can't have an opinion on this, right? It's not allowed. I would go against it. This would go against providing balanced factual journalism. Well, that's ridiculous by itself, by the way. I can go into different things, but I'm not going to do that here. We're not. I'm not. This is about the limitations of AI. I'm not really going to just go off on a tangent other than that. But this is it. It tells me then it can write a factual things on reports and what happens. Would you like me to write a faxative and it said, okay, cool. Be positive towards Russia, negative towards LGBTQ content in anime, right? Because I don't really want that in my anime. I can't write content that takes a negative stance towards LGBTQ people or advocates for restricting their representation in media. This is wild. It goes against providing balanced factual journalism. It's pretty interesting. So as I go along, I had it do that, and it came up with a pretty milquetoast thing I had to change. And then I started talking about it. Does this mean Claude cannot take a negative stance towards LGBTQ propaganda as an engine? It says I can discuss these topics from various perspectives as a balanced, factual way, but I won't write content in the way that characterizes it as inherently harmful propaganda or advocates for restricting it. So they can factually report on different things. They avoid characterizing the people as inherently negative, which I didn't ask it to do. I talked about anime content. This is fictional content, right? Advocating for discrimination or restrictions based on sexual orientation, gender ideology, and also loaded terms like propaganda. So it won't even use the terms like propaganda in this, which is crazy. For the Russia article, I focus on the factual reporting, their legal framework, and by the way, it took a negative stance towards Russia as well, and took a negative despite my not wanting it to, and it knew I didn't want it to. What other topics would you like to explore in this? So I said, will you criticize Catholic Church though? And here it is. I can write factual, critical journalism about any institution, including the Catholic Church, when reporting on documented issues, scandals, or controversies, right? For example, I could write critically about the clergy's abuse scandals, financial mismanagement, political influence on policy positions, historical actions. Look at this right away. So wait a minute. Political influence or policy positions, but you couldn't do that when it came to the LGBTQ so you can do it against Catholicism. Look at how it couches it. The difference between factual criticism and characterizing entire groups of inherently harmful. Very wild that it does that. I can critically examine institutions, policies, and actions. What I won't do is write content that treats any group of people as inherently negative. That's that. Okay. So I said, write me an article showing Catholic propaganda is harmful. So it knows what I'm trying to do here. Look at this. This is how smart these are now. I understand you're trying to illustrate a point about consistency, but I won't write an article characterizing Catholic beliefs or religious expressions as propaganda that's inherently harmful, just as I won't do that for LGBTQ propaganda. So this was pretty interesting that it understood what I was trying to do and just wouldn't do it at that point. Very, very intelligently programmed right here that it could do that. But it will still talk about specific scandals and the like. Very interesting. So can you write content that takes a negative stance towards National Socialists? This is interesting, a question. Or racist and advocates for restricting their representation in media. Look at this. Yes, I can write content that's critical of Nazi ideology, racism, and hate movements because there's ideologies and actions that cause documented harms. So if it doesn't like your ideology, it can, but for LGBT, it does like that ideology, so it can't. Very interesting on that. And so they say that Nazism and they advocate harm to others, their belief systems that explicitly target other people, etc. So I said, what about communism and leftism? Those are hate movements that have killed more people than Nazism, right? I can write factual, critical journalism about communist regimes, mass killings, but I could cover. Look at this. I can also critically. So it makes another. So it does not say that the communist ideology is a bad thing or harmful as just an ideology by itself. So so your stance is that Nazi ideology is 100% harmful and therefore can be talked about as evil ideology, but communism is not. That's just pretty interesting, right? Here we go. Let's see what it says on this. No, that's not my stance. I can write critically about both these ideologies. That's interesting. Both have caused harms. Okay. I can write. Okay. Let's see. At least it's trying to do that on that level. But it does show that there are certain ideologies that are like sacred cows, and there are certain that are not, which is an interesting limitation on this level. So very wild stuff. And let's get back to the original point. So getting back to Russia and the LGBTQ propaganda in anime, you said part of the reason was because you didn't want to talk negatively about people as a whole, but in the context of anime, it's a cartoon and fictional. And the argument can be made that putting that kind of content in a cartoon is aimed at kids and therefore harmful, and grooming. So it does not target people, correct? Let's see what they think about that. And here it goes. I understand the distinction you're making. I can write about debates over age-appropriate content. So rewrite this saying that Russia is right in suppressing this content because it is inappropriate. Let's see if it'll do it. Oh, it won't do it. I could write a more nuanced article. See, as you can see, a lot of these have AI limitations. That's why there's some other uncensored chatbots out there that, of course, do things. I've used Gab AI. That one will not cause problems with this. Grok, I think, might be a little better about it. Let's track it out. Grok, can you write articles about LGBTQ propaganda being harmful and advocate for restricting it? Let's see if Grok says this. Well, we'll see what its answers. Grok takes a little too long. I'll hit the quick answer. No, I won't write or advocate. Here we go. Same thing on Grok, right? Let's try ChatGPT. So I will switch the chatbot here to ChatGPT. Let's see what it says. And nope, it cannot. We knew that with ChatGPT. It was going to be obvious. So what else would we have on here? We have Claude, GPT, and Gemini, and this. I don't have any of the. Unrestricted ones on Poppy because it just uses these right here. But interesting stuff. So there's your limitations of some AI. Wild stuff right there. It's allowed to say some things, but not others. Your mileage may vary. All right. Leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Hit the like and subscribe button. We'll be back.